Welcome, you guys, to another episode of the 10 Dimensions of Wellness podcast. I am your host, Cammie Red, and today we are diving into a vibrant, heart-opening conversation about cultural wellness with someone who actually lives and breathes it, Jennifer Boudrye. Now, Jennifer is the founder of Queer Allyship, and she's here to share her incredible journey as both a cultural wellness advocate and a pride ally to the LGBTQ plus community. In this episode, Jennifer is going to take us behind the scenes of her personal experiences as a parent of a queer child, stories that shaped her approach to allyship. We'll also explore how affirming allies can change lives, and Jennifer will give us practical advice on how we can all step up and become stronger, more empathetic allies. Get ready for a fun, heartfelt conversation filled with wisdom, compassion, and a whole lot of hope. And guess what? Jennifer is one of our featured cultural wellness speakers for this year's virtual summit. So don't miss her insights. And you guys, let's jump right on in. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Wow, what an amazing introduction.
Thank you. You are an amazing woman. So I'm going to go right into our first question. Queer allyship is such an important and timely project. What inspired you to officially launch it, and what has the journey been like for you thus far?
Oh man, thank you. I try to make this concise, but it's kind of difficult. So I spent about 17 years as a school librarian, 4 of those years as the director of libraries for DC public schools. So I work with lots and lots of kids in addition to having my own children. And I saw so many kids who were struggling through their coming out process and watching parents being affirming or not affirming and seeing the impact that that had. So when I decided to leave school librarianship, I became a parent coach, and I was planning to work with parents of teenagers, reflecting back on the parent that I wish I had as when I was a teenager and being less than a positive human being. And the more I worked with parents, the more I realized that my niche really was working with parents of queer kids, because I'm the parent of a proud bi guy and also the bonus parent to a trans man. So I had a little different perspective than many other of the parent coaches out there. So I've been doing that work for a couple of years, and I recently moved from the Washington, D.C. area to Ohio, where I am in the midst of a state and in a county and in a town that is not necessarily affirming. And I have been doing more and more workshops for organizations and mental health providers and government agencies, and realize that my reach really is more than parents. It is parents and anyone and everyone who is interested in learning about queer identities and figuring out the best ways that they can be supportive, affirming allies.
All right. Now, Jennifer, as a parent of queer children, how did your personal experiences shape your approach to cultural wellness and allyship?
It's fascinating to see the growth that it happens as a parent, right? You have these children and you imagine who and what they're going to be. And then the realization hits that, oops, they're autonomous, independent humans, and they know themselves better than we will ever know them. And so it really has been a process. And all of the work that I do is grounded in a framework that I call CARE, which is compassion, awareness, respect, and empathy. Okay. So
I love it. Can you repeat that one more time for us?
I will. So it's compassion, awareness, respect, and empathy. And it's important to know that I feel that compassion inspires action, right? That's that place where we as a parent see our kid might be struggling with something and we want to fix, right? But awareness brings clarity. We have to realize and learn about who our child actually is, right? Respect means understanding again that they are autonomous, independent humans and that they have boundaries that they're allowed to place around themselves, and we have to respect those. And then empathy facilitates connection. And as a parent, what I have learned is that I lived in compassion a whole lot of the time. I was,
Don't we all? Don't we
yes,
all?
I got you. I'm going to fix it. It's going to be okay. What my kids really needed was empathy. And so living that space where you're giving them the space and the time to feel what they need to feel, and you're not trying to solve it for them. You're just with them. And that translates to pretty much any marginalized person, any human being that you're interacting with. That same process and that same framework holds true. And so that's where, when I've shifted from not just parent coaching, but also doing more training and workshops, it's been able to hold pretty steady.
Listen, now that's just a lesson parents need to learn across the board, not just with allyship or dealing with a queer child. That's just as a parent.
Yeah.
Like what you said, and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I do the same thing with my son. And I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other parents that's out there that can identify with trying to be that compassionate parent all the time.
Yeah. And it's hard to learn lessons, right? Like, I will share that my son, I knew early on that he wasn't straight. And so I assumed he was gay. I
Hmm.
grew up in the 70s and 80s. It was pick a team, right?
Yep.
Either team is fine. No worries. He's 28 now. And when he was 19, he was away at college and somebody called him the F slur on
Okay.
campus. And he responded by writing an op-ed for his college newspaper. And in that op-ed, he came out as bisexual. I was like, what? I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the awareness. And obviously learned a whole lot since then and am completely comfortable. But we were talking about it a few months ago, and he shared that my come out, my pick a team perspective really caused him to hide his bisexuality from himself and from me for a really long time. And that's a hard lesson, right? I have to go back and I had to do the repair work to make sure that the mistakes that I had made as a parent, well-intentioned, right? I love Dr. Angelou's do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we have something we got to learn.
Now, you just shared with us a memorable moment about your son coming out as bisexual. Now, how did that moment affect your perspective on allyship and inclusivity?
Yeah. So it made me realize how much I don't know about what I don't know. Right. And for a long time, I struggled with, I don't understand this. And then I got to the point where I don't have to understand it. Right. I'm never going to understand what it is to be anyone other than myself,
Yeah.
a white identifying cisgender heterosexual woman. That's my lived experience. And my son's lived experience is valid and it is his own. And so that's where, again, got to jump into that empathy space and be able to listen, knowing that I'm not going to understand.
Now, what was the hardest part about shifting your own mindset when it came to understanding and supporting your son's identity?
It's having to acknowledge that we all have biases.
Mm,
And again, I've always thought of myself as a very progressive person, right? I thought I was open. I thought I was an ally. And then realizing that I also grew up in a society that put a whole lot into my brain and having to dismantle that. And I think that's where the work really, really takes place for a lot of people.
mhm.
And I approach it by saying, we all have biases and it's not our fault and it's okay. They're all learned and they can be unlearned. And my favorite example of this, just how deeply ingrained these biases are, comes from my bonus son, who's transgender. And he's married to a cisgender woman. And when she was pregnant with their first child, they were very excited. They got the first sonogram, and my bonus son said, "It's a boy." And I responded in my brain with, "Is it?"
Okay, I'm sorry. I know, but yeah.
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 And I was like, dude, you are a trans man. You know that penis does not mean boy,
Yeah.
right? And chances are it is, but you know it's, but it is so ingrained in all of us that there is this gender binary, and this is who, this is what male is like, and this is what female is like. And so it exists, and we have to uncover them and dismantle all those biases.
Now, what advice would you give to parents who might be struggling to fully understand or accept their child's queer identity?
Yeah, it's hard. And it's hard for a lot of parents, and I get it. And they're come from a lot of different perspectives. I will share that I have one of my daughters is a Lutheran pastor, and her husband is a Presbyterian pastor. And so I understand a lot about coming from a Christian perspective, feelings and emotions that people may have for things that they have learned. So again, I think it is important to, when your kid comes to you, there are 3 things that I tell parents to do or say, right? The first thing is, I love you. No matter what is dropped off of that. You don't say, I love you, even though this thing that I don't understand, I'm struggling with exists. It's just, I love you, full stop. Second thing is, thank you for trusting me with this. Right? It is hard for a kid to come out, especially to their parents sometimes. And the third thing is, what do you need from me right now? Because in that moment, it is not about you as the parent and all of the things that are going on in your head. It is about this child and what they need in the moment. They might need a hug. They might need you to help tell some other family member, or they might need you to keep this to yourself, right? Then the work starts. Parents have to go and educate themselves, right? Remembering that you and your child are on different paths on this journey together. And you need to educate yourself because it's not their job to educate you, right? And there are tons of places that you can go to get the information, to get the explanation and the definitions, and decide whether you need additional support. And that's where someone like me comes in, right? And there are also amazing support groups out there for parents. Connecting with others who are going through similar things is really, really important.
Okay, now my next question I want to ask in twofold, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, you stated that you started this in Washington, D.C., Queer Allyship in Washington, D.C., which can be a pretty progressive place, but now you say you live in Ohio. So I'm going to ask you, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in creating resources and spreading awareness, both in Washington, D.C. and in Ohio? So you actually can give us perspective from 2 different places, because as you stated, when you said you were now living in Ohio, I knew that you were up against a lot up there. But when also living in DC, there is some openness, some acceptance going on there. So what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in creating resources and spreading awareness, first in DC, and then we'll get into Ohio, because that's a whole nother
thing. Yeah. So it's interesting. DC is known to be, and it is, one of the most queer accepting places in the country. Statistically, it is just, it just is. What is interesting to me is that the challenges are still the same. Okay. For parents who are surprised or who believe that they're allies, but then their own kid comes out and they have the same, the feelings that they don't necessarily want to have, that exists no matter where you are geographically. So the wonderful thing about DC is that there are a ton of resources, but the challenge is there are also a ton of resources, right? So sorting through and finding the right place,
navigating your place in all
of those. And then
that can be a bit overwhelming for some.
It is. And then there's also, the reality that Washington is a unique place unto itself, right? And so there are a lot of struggles within the queer community still. And depending on how someone identifies, right? The folks, I often say I have the 2 most marginalized under the LGBTQ umbrella: bisexual folks and transgender folks, even within the queer community, can face a lot of discrimination and phobias. So that's challenging. Ohio. I will say that what has been amazing, and we came here because of for family, for my partner and his family. we chose to live in a town that was hosting its very first Pride celebration this
Okay.
summer. Right.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I can do this. And I've never lived anywhere other than the DC metro area. I was like, I can do this. If they're willing to have a Pride, I know that there are some people here who are willing, to be progressive. This wasn't the most amazing Pride festival that I have attended. There were thousands of people here. There were no problems. There were no issues. There were a few little protesters, but they came from out of town and they had a very distinct, specific agenda.
Yeah.
So what I have found is that there are a lot of progressive, welcoming people that are afraid to make themselves known because there is such an atmosphere and a feeling that we're the only ones, right? And so what I am finding is the more that I reach out, the more that I make it known that this is who I am and this is what I do, the more people I'm able to connect with.
Okay. Now, what are some of the most surprising benefits you've noticed in your own life after becoming a more active queer ally?
Yeah. And I will say this not only comes from my own life, but again, I'm a trained librarian, so I like to do research. I have personally experienced, and the research shows that folks who are queer allies are more creative. They are more empathetic. They are more supportive of issues for other people, for more marginalized communities, more open-minded, and we experience more joy.
I love that. And that's just the way we should be as humans, period.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I often say, like, what I do and what I teach is a niche around LGBTQ identity because I have some knowledge and information to share around that, but it expands to any other group, right? It comes down to being good humans.
Yeah. Even when you were talking about care and what that meant to you and the acronym you use for that, like I said, that could just be used for any parent. It doesn't necessarily have to be a parent with a queer child. Some of the lessons that we learn in different spaces, we can apply in other areas of our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Now, your work emphasizes the importance of affirming people in the moment. Can you share some examples of how this has made a difference in your work with others?
Yeah. One of the things that I often hear from parents, especially parents of adolescents, is that their kid is changing identities, right? And maybe they're just, social media is telling them that you try this or try that, and they don't know who they are. And that's true, right? Because people are trying to figure out who they are. And it is totally appropriate, especially during adolescence when you're struggling to figure out everything about yourself. You recognize that you're feeling a way and you learn that, oh, there is this possibility. Maybe I am this, and you try it on. And if it fits, you're good to go, but maybe it doesn't quite fit. So you try something else, right? So I tell parents to believe who your child tells you that they are in this moment and go with that, right? Because in that moment, it's true. And again, I'll go, using my trans bonus son as an example. He grew up female, lesbian, and around 25, 26, somewhere in there, he started doing drag. He was performing as a drag king and met other trans men and realized this is a possibility. This is it. This fits. So he didn't begin his transition until he was in his mid-20s. He's now in his mid-30s. And I have other friends and folks that have come out as trans at 55, at 45, right? And it's a matter of having more visibility and having awareness that there are options, that there are a variety of different ways that you can identify.
I love that. Now, I actually have been seeing the advertisements for Will Ferrell. He has a friend who is now a trans trans woman. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And they're doing a documentary on their friendship and how it came about and how the world sees her now and how they're taking a journey across America, and he's giving perspective on how it's affecting him and the things that he's seeing and how it's changed him.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how, being a queer ally has changed the way you see yourself and how it's influenced your personal growth?
Yeah. One of the things that I think is really important for all allies to do is to be reflective about your own identity, right? And most of the time you're going through life, you identify as cisgender female, you don't think about it, right? It's a privilege that you have, right? And I happen to be multi-privileged, right? I'm white, I'm female, college educated. So I have to stop and think about who I am in this world and recognizing, like, when did I know that I was straight? I've always known it, right? So maybe people who aren't straight have always known it.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that each one of us is just a whole mix mash of lots of different aspects of our identity. It's important to stop and think about how we know what we know about ourselves, right? And that helps us believe and validate other people's experiences.
Okay. Now, you've been working in education for over 20 years. How do you see allyship playing a role in creating healthier and more inclusive educational environments?
Yeah, I have been. I think about, it's interesting to me, like my path. I worked for a while at a middle school that was in a suburban neighborhood, but had very urban demographics, quote unquote. We spent as a staff an entire year working through race and courageous conversations. And I feel like I'm going through very similar processes around LGBTQ plus identities, right? And this is where, when we talk about it coming back to the same kinds of things, recognizing the identities that people have and the awareness that you need to have. So I walk through life now so aware of my identity and all of the different aspects of my identity. And I have a realistic perspective of how I'm perceived by other people before they even meet me, the assumptions that they make. And that's a good thing, because then I'm able to help them learn about me, who I am as an actual individual, and dispel some of their myths, right? And then they can do the same for me because I'm open to that experience. And I think if we want to be healthy as a society, and we talk about, culturally, it is about embracing and loving and validating everyone's lived experience.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I'm so glad you said that. What does cultural wellness mean to you, and how does that intersect with your work through what you're doing with Queer Allyship?
Yeah. So cultural wellness means truly, and I keep going back to the care, compassion, awareness, respect, and empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is having that feeling about my own culture, but also other cultures, right? And we talk about, when I think about cultures, there is a queer culture, there is a deaf culture, there is a Latinx culture, right? We have so many different, amazingly rich cultures and experiences. And if I were to stick only with my own world, oh, how limiting that is, right? How just small that is. And so my opportunity to not just celebrate with, right? Like when I talk with people who just go to Pride, right? That Pride festival once a year, and then they're allies. Not so much, right? It has to continue on. It's an active thing. But you have to have awareness of what the culture is. You have to understand the culture, the issues, the celebrations, yes, but also the struggles and what is influencing culture, right? When we talk about the queer community, legislation.
Yeah.
right, is having a huge impact on the queer community. And so I have to be an engaged and aware voter.
Okay. So this brings me to my next question. Activism and allyship are closely linked. How do you balance the emotional weight of activism with maintaining your own mental and emotional wellness?
It's not always easy. It is celebrating the wins, right? It is being consistent, knowing that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And being able to recognize, measure the growth, right? Like we have a goal. Mm-hmm. We're all trying to reach that goal of equality and equity and harmony. And if I were to only stick there and be like, well, I'm not there yet, it would be devastating, right? So, but if I'm able to look back and go, oh, we had this success, right? We started here and we made that amount of growth and we've made this amount of growth. And whether that's with an individual family, which I can celebrate the heck out of, or on a national level, there is growth. The fact that I moved to this community, which is a very red town and a very red county and a very red state, very red state, but I have found so many people that I consider friends, and that's a celebration.
I love that. Now, how do you stay motivated in your advocacy work, especially when faced with difficult conversations or pushback from others?
I have to constantly revisit the progress that we've made, right? My father passed about a little over a year ago, and he was a very conservative person who had very strong anti-queer feelings. And then his grandson came out and was bisexual, and my dad got there, right? He was able to absolutely love and accept and affirm his grandson. So it is finding those people that are able to make the shifts and have, families where there has been, years of disconnection because of beliefs, and watching as those parents learn and grow and repair and reconnect with their kids, and bringing a family back together. That's what keeps you going, right? Is the wins.
Yeah. Now, how do you encourage others to celebrate wins in allyship, even when progress seems slow or small?
It really is. I feel like I'm just repeating the same things, but it truly is about recognizing that one person changing their mindset is going to have influence well beyond anything that you can ever imagine. Right? You have no idea where that person, the next person that they're going to influence, and the next person that they will. And so just having that faith and belief that the change that we're making is going to be greater than any one of us.
And it's okay. Repetition is key. We learned that in school. As a librarian, you know that. If you repeat it over and over and over again, it doesn't matter if you give me the same answer to all.
Ditto.
Like, repetition is key. That's going to make it's going to actually resonate with somebody, what you're saying. And they're going to remember all of the things that you think you're just repeating. They're going to be like, hey, that stuck out. I remember when she said this. I remember when she said that. And that was a very valid point. So if you feel like you're repeating it, keep repeating it, because it must be the message that's meant to be heard. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Now, earlier you mentioned that queer allyship can increase creativity and empathy. Have you noticed any changes in your own creativity or emotional awareness since deepening your allyship?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that I am putting myself out here as an entrepreneur and doing things, creating graphics and doing all of the things that I didn't learn that in library school, right? That is not who I believed myself to be. So my perception of myself has definitely changed for the better.
Okay. Now, you also noted earlier that queer allies develop stronger connections and live with greater purpose. Can you share a story where this is actually rang true for you or someone you've worked with?
Yeah. So I have a client who had a very high power career.
Mhm.
They were a parent who struggled to affirm their child, and they've gotten there, and it's a good thing. And this person is now retired, and I am watching them volunteer in the community and do work that is supporting others in a way that they had nothing to do with their career. And it has really been an opportunity for them to see the needs that other people have and to live outside of themselves a little bit.
I love that. Kudos to them.
Yeah, it's a
All
lot of
right.
growth.
Now, I know you're writing a book. What can we expect from it, and how will it support those looking to be better allies?
I'll get there. Writing a book is a big thing.
It is. It is. I've written and published about 7 books, so I understand.
Oh
Yeah.
my. It's like I think I'm done. No. I got so much further to go. It really is it is a deep, deep dive into the care process. And it's seated with queer allyship and specifically for parents, but it's going to be a lot more universal. As we said, these are things that you can take into every area of your life. And I'm hoping it's going to be very inspirational and help people and parents feel that they are on the way to being super strong allies for their kids and for others in the community.
I love that. Do you have a name for it yet?
No.
Okay.
I have a few working titles, but nothing I'm going to share right now.
Okay. Now, can you talk about the resources on your website? Which ones do you recommend for someone who's just beginning their allyship journey?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be putting out a couple of guides that are going to be living on the website. So I'm just going to send people there right now. But I want to also, I'll share a couple of organizations that I think are super, super helpful for our parents and people that are learning and just starting their journey. One is PFLAG, and that is the Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, is the way it was named way back when. They now certainly provide a lot of support and education around trans and non-binary identities. And so it's PFLAG. And another one is really helpful is HRC, which is the Human Rights Campaign. Has a lot of great information and resources for folks who are wanting to learn. And the last one I'll point people to, and I want to give it a little caveat, because when you start digging into this one, you can get into a lot of the scary, scary statistics around mental health and the impact really of all of the biases. And you have to keep in mind that all of the scary, scary statistics hold true when people don't have support, right? If they don't have allies that are there for them. But that being said, it's the Trevor Project.
Okay.
And every year they do an amazing mental health survey of trans youth or LGBTQ plus youth. And that's where you'll find the scary statistics. But especially as a parent, when parents find out that their kids are queer, fear is one of the top emotions that they experience, right? Because you do hear all of the stories, and the stories are true. But having a strong, affirming ally literally is life-saving.
Okay. Yeah, you think about that. But and again, that translates across any marginalized group, especially here in the United States.
Yeah.
You think about all of the negative things that come with it, as opposed to how you can transform your life to help someone and be better and make it a better world for not only your child, but for someone else that may be going through it, and be an example for other parents.
Yep.
Now, with that being said, what's the most rewarding part of leading queer allyship, and what are your hopes for the future of your organization?
The most amazing moments are when I see someone get it. Someone recognizes, and it's not always something they verbalize, right? But you can tell just by a facial expression. They're like, oh.
I
Got
get
it.
it. Yeah.
Right. And being able to know that that is going to just spark all kinds of changes and open-mindedness. It is amazing. So rewarding. Um, what I hope is, I mean, I say that my mission is to create safe and affirming communities, families, and workplaces, one ally at a time. And what I hope is that I will continue to reach more and more people so that we can get to a place where the world is safe and affirming and accepting and loving of all people.
Okay. Well, this is my last question for you. If you could share one piece of advice or encouragement with someone who wants to be a better ally but doesn't know where to start, what would it be?
It would be to talk with people who are queer and listen to their lived experiences and believe them. Listen to what they know. Believe that there is so much queer joy out there. And if you're a parent that is worried about where your child may end up, oh no, I'm not going to be able to have grandchildren, or your fears for them aren't necessarily true, right? Go with the what if. What if this is the most amazing thing about this person? And just believe them when they tell you who they are in this moment.
I love it. Give people where they can find you, your social media, your website, all of that.
Yeah, so my website is www.queerallyship, all one word, .com. I'm also on Facebook at Queer Allyship, all one word. And then on Instagram at queer_allyship.
We will be sure to put those in the description of this particular episode. So if people really want to reach you, reach out to you and talk to you, they'll find it. But also, Jennifer will be speaking on December the 14th at our 10 Dimensions of Wellness Virtual Summit, which the link is going across the bottom of the screen. So if you'd like to hear more about that, make sure you're logging onto the website and getting your tickets. Now, Jennifer, thank you so much for giving us your time today and going so in depth. I learned a lot today, and I'm pretty sure some other people did as well. I learned how connected we all are and how we have to do some self-reflection when faced with things that we may not understand. So thank you again for being on the show. I really genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate the conversation, and I look forward to our summit.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited. Okay, you guys, this has been another episode of the 10 Dimensions of Wellness. What a ride this was. A huge thank you again to Jennifer Boudrye for joining us today and sharing her story, her heart, and her passion for allyship. Her message reminds us that allyship isn't just about supporting others, it's about becoming more authentic, connected, and empathetic in our own lives. If you're feeling inspired and ready to take your allyship to the next level, be sure to catch Jennifer's full presentation at the Virtual Wellness Summit on December the 14th. Trust me, it's going to be packed with more insights and practical tips that'll leave you feeling more empowered. As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you love today's episode, share it with someone who could use a little bit more joy in their day. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious. And as Jennifer reminded us, let's keep showing up for each other. Take care, and I will see you soon. Don't forget to like, follow, share, and comment on your favorite podcast platform.